Okay. And so far they haven't told me why it does it that way. But yeah, typically for a meeting it's about 5 times.
Oh my gosh.
So
is that a feature or a benefit?
I think what it does is when you hit it the first time, it goes over there.
Do I have to hit press and hold?
No, I've just been, like they told me just to hit it originally. Okay. So we've made it to YouTube, so that part's good. We've made it live in the room. There we go. There you go.
Okay, call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Mark Dennis.
Here.
Nate Tormellan.
Here.
JJ Reinhardt. Tim Harden.
Here.
Bonnie Good. Here. And John Kelly.
Okay, we have a quorum. Thank you, Bonnie. Has everybody had a chance to take a look at the minutes? Would entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
And a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Mayor, any public hearings?
Nope.
Okay. Any old business? Not hearing any. Certified Tech Park recertification. Mr. Lorenzo? Oh, you know what? I think that's last month's description. But you do have something today, right?
I do, but
Okay.
Not that.
Right. I think that was last month. I think the agenda probably still has last month's description in there.
I'd be happy to talk about that.
Not necessary.
But you wouldn't learn anything. My name's Jeff Lorenzo. I am a member of the Seymour Industrial Board, Seymour Industrial Corporation Board. I'm also on JCIDC's board, and I'm filling in for Jim today, who's out of town. Jim made a presentation to this board, this commission last month, requesting that the Redevelopment Commission commit $2 million plus or minus for infrastructure improvements at the Eastside Industrial Park, which are on the drawings I've shown you and here. The project has been in the design phase for several years. We have long felt that addressing the 90-degree turn at Hartzell Drive, as well as converting that to sort of an S-curve, and providing access to the interior of the property Seymour Industrial owns or options is critical. So as you can see, there are 2 phases to the project. Total cost is $4,030,312, and we are asking the Redevelopment Commission to commit $2,030,312. Your commitment would be used as a match for the state's Ready 2.0 program, and we are applying for $2 million from that fund as well. Phase 1 includes the construction of the new east-west access road just south of the Duke transmission line, as well as other utilities, including sanitary sewer. Phase 2 is the improvement to Hartzell Drive, which I've just alluded to, as well as additional sanitary sewer. The timing for the funding would be $1 million in 2025 and $1,030,312 in 2026. And it could begin construction as early as the second quarter of this year, assuming we have the funding. It appears that Phase 2 would see the majority of the work this year, and Phase 1 would be started in 2026 with the opening of the Vital Farms project. This year we're anticipating construction of a road base and some utility work. Vital Farms is committing $83 million plus or minus to the 74-acre site that is shown on your drawing as Lot 2A. And these properties, or these projects will make the property at the Eastside Industrial Park far more marketable, including a 29-acre site adjacent to Interstate 65 and 56 acres north of the transmission line, which SIC has optioned. The Ready Grant Program, which I think Dan and Jackie could provide far more detail on if you need that, includes a consortium of Jackson, Bartholomew, and Jennings counties as the South Central Indiana Talent Region. We were awarded $30 million from the initial round of funding in 2021. Last year, as part of Ready 2.0, we were again awarded $30 million, and this infrastructure work was one of the more important projects submitted for consideration at Ready. So funding for this request would fulfill the state's requirement of at least 1-to-1 local match for Ready dollars, and certainly the Vital Farms investment of $83 million puts us well over the 3-to-1 private match that's required by Ready. So at this time, what we'd ask for is RDC's approval and a commitment letter that we can provide to the folks at Ready to secure their match. We have several people who are far more knowledgeable about virtually everything here than I am, including Dan, Ray, Marvin, Bruce, and if you have questions, any of us would be happy to try to answer.
And just for full disclosure, I am treasurer for Seymour Industrial Corporation as well, so I will not be voting. So in the event the Ready 2 match is not provided, then we would have no obligation to commit the $2 million.
That would be true.
Okay. So are there other questions? I mean, when he says this has been on the table for a while, I've been on SIC's board since 2002 or 3, and it was on the table then. So it's been an idea for a really long time.
I just wanted a question on the construction part. I know that you're looking at getting rid of the 90-degree turn and that S-curve. And then when you look at the new road that's going in, it's got a 90-degree turn. Is that just because of the width of the road that we need to get rid of the other 90 and the new one being wider? It's okay that that's not going to be a problem for traffic and the things?
I don't think so.
Okay, I just wanted.
Jonathan has designed and redesigned this on several occasions over the years, and he feels like this is the best design available within the limitations of the current road work.
And where does the Ready 2 money stand? I mean, I think maybe it was last meeting that somebody mentioned that it was possible they were going to make us spend all of Ready 1. Is that still?
No, so I think that bill has died at the State House. So I think we're back to the 65% mark, which Jackie or Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but Brothersville just submitted.
I heard we were at 64.9.
Yeah, we're awful close.
And there was some outstanding documents that would put us over
Brothersville's water
65,
project should put us over that, which just submitted its first draws. So
We are actually considerably higher in terms of that percentage than most of the state. Most of the state.
number 2 in the state.
Yeah, we're just one of, 2 regions that are even close to that, so.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other comments from the gallery? If not, would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the request as stated by Jeff.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Note that I abstain, please.
Yes, sir.
You're welcome. Good luck with that. It's been a long time coming. I think it's gonna be very valuable for the community for a long, long time. Jackson County Learning Center update.
Thank you, Mark. For the meeting, I passed out some notes on what we'll be talking about here. Jim mentioned when we were all here last month that Seymour Redevelopment Corporation, before you guys last month, to ask your support for the expansion of the Vincennes University Maintenance Training Program out at the Learning Center as part of the Ready 2.0 program. As you guys know, you were big supporters and financial providers for us on getting the Vincennes program up and running out at the Learning Center through Ready 1. We are requesting that Redevelopment provide $250,000 toward a $500,000 project that will allow the purchase of additional equipment to support advanced training classes in mechanical and electrical maintenance classes. In addition, we're looking at a small expansion or addition to the Learning Center to provide Vincennes University with additional storage space for that equipment. That's part of the request as well. It would be our suggestion, obviously that's up to you folks, but it would be our suggestion that the RDC consider using certified tech park funds for this request. Seymour was recently recertified as a level 2 certified tech park. That's what Jim was here to talk about last month. That allows the state to award the city up to $250,000 annually. That amount was received by Seymour in late 2024, and those funds need to be expended within the boundaries of the local tech park, which of course includes Jackson County Learning Center, as well as the Cummins campus there at the Seymour Engine Company. The $250,000 in Seymour Redevelopment Commission funds would be used to provide the public match that is required by the state, and we're contacting local industries for $150,000 of private support to complete the $500,000 needed, with $100,000 coming from Ready 2.0. This is much like what we did when we originally started the program with the help of Ready 1 funds and the RDC funds at that time. For that program, you folks awarded $480,000, which was matched by an equal amount from Ready, and then $570,000 from three local firms that amounted to a total of a $1.53 million project. The Ready 1 side of this allowed classes to be offered starting in November of 23 for basic and intermediate mechanical and electrical maintenance. This proposal would offer advanced classes and allow workers who have taken the first 2 sessions to continue and complete their training with the advanced level. We continue to have great support from our local companies, besides those, what we have called the big 3 who provided the upfront money. Other companies as well have been sending their incumbent workers for this training. Since the program was offered beginning, again, I think it was November of 23, we've seen more than 100 workers earn certificates in either basic or intermediate electrical and mechanical training classes. The number I have here is 107, although I'm thinking 5 or 6 more guys completed a class and earned their certificates last Thursday. That sound right, Jackie? So they continue to be running through there. 18 more sessions are planned for this year, not including advanced training, which again we anticipate will be offered in late third quarter or perhaps as late as early last quarter of this year. Again, we're completing discussions on providing financial and payments for this expansion as well. And then we'll also be asking those folks for letters of support, much like we're asking for a letter of support from Seymour Redevelopment. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thanks, Dan. I do have a question. The people who are going through these courses, are they all local companies or are other counties sending workers to
We've
these
had
classes?
some from Toyota.
Toyota has expressed interest. There's some companies from outside, but they are taking Jackson County first. And then if they can't fill the classes, then they're.
So there's likely a need for this sort of thing into the future, even once we've got all our
There's
people
not a
trained.
program like this, like
Yeah.
in
Perfect.
the area, so.
For quite a number of counties around.
And
You know, Mark, I know you guys are always interested in JCEC's bottom line with the Learning Center. We're already seeing additional money come in from Vincennes, from their offering classes like phlebotomy and some alphabet soup class that I never remember the letters of. But we're seeing more classes being offered by Vincennes, and I think you'll start to see them offering even more, just beyond the advanced manufacturing. So we're excited to have them out there.
so they're happy with their presence here as well.
In
Very
addition
much
to
so.
you though, there's the other colleges that have kind of been,
Yeah.
I don't wanna say
They're
dormant,
stepping up,
but
too.
not as proactive, have all of a sudden stepped up their game.
It's funny how that works. So these are funds that have already come into our coffers by virtue of the Certified Tech Park, and they have to be used in the Certified Tech Park, so this is a good use for it. Okay. Any other questions for Dan?
With the, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
With the commitment of buying additional equipment and putting an addition on the building for their storage, what type of commitment do you have from Vincennes? Is there a time frame that they're committed to do this program for so many years, or?
Tim, I don't know if there is a time
There-
commitment for, in writing.
Up until now with the Ready One funds, there really hasn't been an obligation from VU in terms of funding, but those discussions are starting.
Yeah.
Because up until now, we've kind of ran the program and helped, but then after the 3-year commitment, the original commitment, it was basically going to be then VU, this is yours. And so then that will require them to, pay the services and fees to the Learning Center like everybody else.
Yeah, we should start seeing new income from VU for these classes. Again, that's
And we're
Coming
confident
up
that
before
that's
too
gonna
long.
happen because they are overjoyed with what's happened. It's exceeded their expectations
yeah.
of the program, so.
Nate?
they've been pretty clear about that.
Matt, in the financials, there's a $250,000 miscellaneous capital outlay. Is that
Yeah, that's what this was
this
for.
request? I mean, it was just a placeholder, basically.
Correct.
Okay.
The only thing I'd point out, and I was gonna reference it when I came up, but the only thing I'll point out is that, we may just have to, it just comes down to a cash flow. We may have to make the payment out of your guys' main TIF fund, and then when we get the revenue for this year, reimburse the main TIF from Certified Tech Park. Being that we already made the $280,000 Jackson County Education Coalition payment out of the Tech Park this year. That really kind of used the $250 of last year's revenue. So if you look, that fund balance as of right now is only $189,455. So we couldn't obviously make a $250 payment, we'd go into the red. So that revenue typically comes in from the state in October. So I would just propose that we have that come out of the main fund, and then when we get that 250 in October, we can reimburse, from the Tech Park Fund.
When are the funds actually needed, Dan?
Pardon?
When are the funds actually needed?
You know, our hope is to be able to have the equipment ordered and the addition built in time to have classes going in the third quarter, possibly fourth quarter. And you know, Mark is in so much of this ready stuff. A lot depends upon how quickly or slowly the state moves. Sometimes they're lickety split, and other times they're just seem to drag along.
I'm just a CPA, but how did that answer my question?
I guess I don't have a for sure answer
Okay,
for
alright.
you.
Okay. But if it need be, we can borrow between the funds, and that's perfectly legal and normal, okay? Any other questions?
At this time, a letter of commitment will send the project forward.
Yeah.
So.
And I don't think, they still have not set a time frame for, here's a deadline for when you have to have all the money allocated and.
Right now, it's later.
Okay.
We have an April 1st timeline to get everything in.
Tim, you look like you got a question.
Yeah, I just thought if the money that's coming from the private sector of things, would that come in sooner to where it may make our funds not needed until later in the project or in the fall for our full 250 or?
I'm not sure where those talks are, Tim, to be quite honest with you.
Okay.
You know, on the first ready round, we spread the payments from the industries over 3 years. It seems like it was heavily loaded
Two of
up
the
front.
industries have expressed to do a 2-year
Right.
commitment,
Okay.
so.
Good. Anything else? Would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Tim.
I'll second.
Thank you, Bonnie. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and good luck with that. The other thing is not on the agenda.
Do we need to talk about the claims first, or, and do this under miscellaneous?
Well, I'm just saying this is not on the agenda.
Okay.
So if we want it on there, we need to move to amend the agenda to include it before we can discuss it, right?
Or lump it in under
New business.
miscellaneous.
Okay, all right. All right, so we'll go ahead and move on. Who's gonna speak for Reedy on the financial group report?
Once again, you guys just love taking all my comments before I have a chance to get up here. So I think my biggest things I wanted to point out, obviously other than claims that are on the docket this month, would just be that O'Brien Street cost, getting some more clarity on specifically what years. So Cole's already got his computer out and updated those to push those back into 26 into 27. So that 25 cost you'll see come down drastically with the next update. Bulk of it being in 26, within a million or so remaining in 27. So I think that helps out your guys' cash flows considerably, even with us laying in the million expected this year for the ready match, and then the million 30 next year for that as well. Other than that, wanted to talk about the tech park piece, so kind of covered that once again. I think there's no issue with having that cost. If it does come due, if they need the funds, us taking it out of the Burkhart Drive allocation area fund, and then whenever that revenue comes in around the October timeframe, using those funds to reimburse the main TIF fund for that expenditure. So it essentially will come out of that tech park fund, because those are allowable uses, as we've said. That fund's kind of more restrictive than others, so important that we get any expenditures that can be out of that fund in that place. So other than that, nothing too much unless you guys have questions for me. But I think and I don't know how much you guys have shared with Bonnie and Tim based on the meeting that was had Friday. But we've got on a system now, between ourselves and the city's engineering group, Chad and Bernie, to really, not only for the O'Brien Street and the Second Street, but to really be able to track all projects as they come, to us. And, there's always the time frame where, okay, here's how much, we expect the project to be. If inflation increased those costs, how does that, change our contracts page, and how do we stay on top of that? So I think we have a document that we should be getting updates from monthly to make sure we're on track and not experiencing any large increases in projects that are unknown. We'll at least be able to see, okay, this went up X amount, here's why, right? Things cost more, or there was a change order, whatever it may be. So the tracking of those projects, will be a lot more of a fluid process and a lot easier to digest, for you guys. The one thing I did want to point out or mention on that contracts page, I know you guys had referenced, we'd like to see the original, contract amount. And I think that we can do that in for the most part, I should say. And the thing that I would say that we should be looking at to include in that original contract amount, I want to make sure we're comparing apples to apples, right? If we look at the total or we look at the original contract amount that may have been in there before we got this process in place, right? It could show a small number. Well, the scope of that DES number, or that project, that contract, has changed so much to include so much stuff that it looks like a massive jump in the contract. Well, that's because we're including so many more things. So I think what I would recommend is on that page, what we do is we have original contract amount, essentially from the standpoint of here's the original contract amount when the project was awarded to us from the state, right? So no major changes in scope that would inflate the cost of that contract, but that way we're comparing apples to apples. X, Y, and Z is included in this original contract amount. X, Y, and Z is still included in this current contract amount. And we can see what are the changes due to increased costs as opposed to the changes due to a massive scope change or something along those lines. Okay?
In essence, this goes back to the problem we had for like 3 months where the reports just didn't make sense. We've met independently because of open door laws, and I think we've come up with a solution that's going to make the reports a lot more user-friendly. Really tells us what's going on, and we appreciate all the extra effort. So,
absolutely.
Any other questions for Matt?
I had a question on the copies of the individual contracts on the acquisition of the O'Brien Street properties.
Okay.
I noticed on several of them, the amounts had been marked through and a new amount put in. Thankfully, they were lower, but they were handwritten in. So I didn't know if there was some adjustment negotiations, if it was just an adjustment from somewhere. If I'm just want to make sure that those figures that are put in there now of what we're approving are firm, that it's because of them being changed, if there's going to be a possibility of further changes in those numbers.
Yeah, and negotiations is the answer that I'm being given. Because those, once again, that's the thing is, I'm an accountant, right? I know numbers. I don't know how engineerings and estimates and all that works. I take the numbers that are given to me and I put them in here. So, and that's where my whole point was, my report can only be as good as the numbers that I'm given. So really wanted to get on the same page as far as my group, engineering group, so we can kind of see what are these changes, what's the reasoning, and have a more fluid process behind getting the numbers that you guys need, right? That I can understand from a non-engineering standpoint to a finance standpoint. Okay?
That's a good question. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Has everybody had a chance to take a look at the claims? Tim, does that explanation satisfy you then?
Yes.
Would entertain a motion to accept the claims.
So moved.
Thank you, Nate.
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now miscellaneous business. What do you have?
Okay, so we've got this application, from the Tree City Board, asking for $21,569, to help with the Tree City program. Of course, I know the quality of life grants have been tabled while we were getting all of our financial things in order. So this wouldn't actually be a quality of life grant, or a request. So, and we did approve, their request last year.
Do we know how much was approved last year?
It was about that amount. I don't have
Same.
that.
Yeah, 21,000.
569.
So, and we discussed kind of before the meeting started, is this gonna be an annual ask? Or
My understanding is that it would be.
into perpetuity? I mean,
As long as we keep reapplying and getting awarded a Tree City status, it's just part of our process.
so what does this cover then? I thought it covered planting of trees.
It does. Tree maintenance, tree planting, different projects like that.
There is a breakdown on the second page
Yeah.
of what the budget is.
Of course, the city puts a lot of money and labor, in kind, into doing these things. But my understanding is that with these extra funds, they're able to do much more, and they are working with arborists to make sure that they plant appropriate trees in the right places, so that hopefully the trees will be able to. They won't need to be replaced as quickly as some of the trees have in the past.
Is there anybody here to speak about the grant request, or does that
Sure.
fall under you, Mayor?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not actually on the tree board, but I can try to answer questions.
I mean, 20,000 just seems like a round number. So is this like up to 20,000, or how do you arrive at what needs?
So
Place.
through the Tree City process, we have to commit $2 per capita to tree maintenance, new trees, all the things involved when it comes to trees annually. So Seymour's population is 21,569 people. Between you guys and you guys are the Redevelopment Commission, you guys in the Solid Waste District last year helped us reach that $2 per capita. Last year, you guys did 21,569, so you took care of half of it for us. I believe the year before that, it wasn't quite that high. I want to say it was like 75 cents per capita the year before. But that is completely.
So does this breakdown reflect historically what the money has been spent on?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay. And so is there a fund with leftover funds in it, or so how much is in that fund? Roughly, maybe we're talking like
It's on the computer. Yeah.
2,000 or 3,000, or like 20,000?
I can go and look really quick if we wanna know an exact number, it's on my computer.
No, but no ballpark figure.
So they did just get a payment from Solid Waste,
Okay.
which I believe was 10,000 something.
So we just have to decide if it's something that falls within our purview and satisfies our mission. And how does everybody feel about that? Sounds like this is going to be an annual request. So
I know part of the description on here talked about them working with the expert about going through the city and determining trees that could be removed and different things that could be replaced that would work well. And I actually, in the last couple of months, had talked to Bonnie and also the mayor about some situations that we've all seen around town where the trees have just matured over time and busted the sidewalks and curbing up, and it's creating some hazards and wondering options on taking care of that. And I didn't know that this was addressing part of that. So if it's going to help correct some of those situations, I'm even in more favor of it to help solve some of that.
okay. Well, we have the request. We probably need to vote on it. Is there any kind of motion either way?
I'll make a motion to approve the request.
Approve it as presented.
Just want to verify on the motion, since they submitted it on this application, do we just need to change that to a funding request?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Just for terminology, since we've tabled that.
Right.
Okay. I'll second it.
Okay, got a motion and a second.
So, or, I guess, are we calling this a quality of life or no?
No.
No.
And my understanding is that this kind of thing would have been historically something that would have come before we even had quality of life grants. I mean, this is not, it wouldn't be out of the normal to have it not be a quality of life grant.
I mean, I found one document from 23 where it was part of the quality of life grants in 22. Like we voted on 9/26 of 22 to approve half of it was the same number, 21,569. We approved half of that as a quality of life grant in 22. So, I mean, should we be consistent in how
We should, thank you for finding that.
but I couldn't find the ones from 23 and 20, or 24, that drive is no longer accessible, I couldn't find it.
I'm pretty sure in 24, we did it under the grant program because we were still meeting and doing that twice a year.
Right.
But since we voted to table that grant program for the time being because of the budgets, I didn't know that we would send it through under the same terminology versus just a funding request.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we could do it as a quality of life grant since we had tabled that. So it'd have to be just.
I mean, we could always untable it.
Well,
Untable it.
I just say too that the quality of life grant, right, that 3% of our end of year fund balance, I mean, that's a parameter that you guys set when establishing that program. If it's always been underneath that, we can just include it underneath that amount on the plan. That way you can see, okay, we've already approved X, that would leave our remaining amount that we have underneath that 3% as Y, right? It would just reduce the amount that you'd approve on other quality of life for the remainder of the year.
How does everybody feel about that?
I'm okay with it.
I mean, I feel like it should be under quality of life, is my opinion.
Okay.
And given what we've seen in the financials, our cash balance is way higher than it was 2 months ago on our projection, so, you'd be okay with untabling it and taking requests, now. I mean, and see if anybody, if there's any out there, giving a time frame on that,
But then that way too, like, if you did approve it underneath that quality of life line item, I mean, it's not like your projection, it's not like this
It doesn't
21
change,
would
yeah.
increase the amount of
That's correct.
expenditures for
Yeah.
the year, because we already have a 3% built in.
Right.
I guess my other question would be, did we actually, I know we tabled doing the grants twice a year, but if that's all we tabled, then that doesn't close the account.
Well, that's
The
true.
avenue,
All
does
we
it?
tabled was the process,
Right.
right? We didn't table the outcome. So we still have the quality of life in the budget at 3% of previous year balance. So really, this could come within that, just not part of the semi-annual
Right.
application process. I don't think we want to set a precedent that we want stuff coming back every month, which is why we did this in the first place. So is there wisdom to withdrawing your motion and the second and having this request fall within the first semi-annual application request for the quality of life grants for 2025? And then have a motion to approve it.
Well, we talked about not doing that in the spring because of the increase for Main Street. That some of the funds that were normally set aside for that grant process were now increased to Main Street, so.
Yeah, that's true.
I also think that was as much because there was so much uncertainty with our cash position. I mean,
Well, there's
Okay.
questions about open door and everything that we were running into with those.
So if we're opening back up the quality of life grants, I would suggest, that, if we're gonna stick to the, twice a year, or even once a year, that even if we do this one today, fine, but then, do one, call for applications, later this year, so that we do get them all at once and not, next month, a different one.
Right.
I just
I
didn't
think
want.
that's what we want to avoid.
Yeah,
Mayor, is there a timeliness component of this request, or?
No, I mean, I think it could be one of those that you could, if you're gonna open the process up, I think they gave it to you because your process was normally open around now.
Right.
If I remember correctly, so, yeah, I mean, if you wanna hold off and do a call for requests, I don't think that would make a huge difference.
But we still don't have to even open up an application process if we just look at funding like this, but it goes under that line item in the budget of quality of life. It doesn't have to be considered a grant in the future, correct?
That's correct.
So we could deal with that at any point that we want to, if we decide later to open up a grant application process one time or two times or whatever, or not open that in the future, but just accept the occasional funding request on something like this. But
It's your motion. How would you like to deal with it with the second?
Bonnie did the original motion, so.
Oh, okay, so it's your motion. Do you want to withdraw it or amend it?
Let me withdraw it, and then what's the cleanest language we need to use for it at this point? I'm sorry, I'm battling a migraine right now.
Probably the next motion needs to be, how do we want to handle quality of life grants going forward? Because the old process is kind of on hold. So do we want to reestablish it? Do we want to establish a different process where we do it semi-annually or annually, and when do we want to do them? Or do we want to send it to Main Street and let them decide on it? I mean, we've got options.
Right.
Our previous discussion was that we were going to let them handle some of it since they were increasing their
Right.
purview of what they were doing, and I'm still okay with it. My opinion would be that we not do quality of life grant applications this year and let that run its course for a year, and we review it for next year. And then we could still do the occasional request like this if we choose to, on an individual basis, and then and we can just call it a funding request, or as he said, he could plug it into that category on the ballot.
Quality of life expenditure, right? Like,
Right.
Yeah.
that's what the pillar would fall underneath is.
Right, so the Main Street piece is outside of that quality of life. That 350, which we intended to cover some of these things, is a separate line item now.
I just worry that if we, just take the requests as they come periodically, then that'll get us right back to
Yes.
every month. And so I know when we had the Main Street presentation, what they were talking about, I'm not sure that they were seeing exactly the same kinds of things that we get in our grant process. And of course, their focus is just downtown, and we do have more areas that we serve with the quality of life grants. So we can cover more geographic areas through the quality of life than just the Main Street program. And of course, I definitely support the Main Street program. I just think we have a little more, it's just a little bit broader coverage through this. So I guess I'm in favor of continuing the quality of life grants. I just would, I'd prefer to maybe just do one round this year, in a couple months and open it up to everyone.
Where are we at budget-wise on that, since we did increase it?
I mean, it's already in the
It's in the budget for 117
117,000.
to
But did we
472.
kind of earmark part of that towards the increase we did for Main Street, or did we
No,
still keep
no,
that
that's over
separate?
and above.
Completely separate.
Okay.
Yeah.
I knew they were accounted for separate, I just didn't know in our budgeting if we
No,
included it or not.
Yeah, it's over and above.
Okay.
So are you wanting to go back to the request and ask them to wait until we establish a process for
If,
quality of life grants in 2025?
if there's not a timeliness issue, it would be a lot cleaner, I think, if we had this submitted at the same time that we've opened it up to other people. That's my personal feeling
Okay,
on
you
that.
chaired that process previously.
And Tim,
Yeah, what kind of time frame was it previously? Was it spring and fall, and if we do it once a year, do you want it to be by June 30th, or, and Mayor, how does that impact?
I mean, June 30th would put us in a little more of a bind, but, I mean, you could,
Because that's next fiscal year for you guys.
no, I mean, we're still in the same fiscal year, it just, we get to where it's a little tougher to get the spending part done at that point.
Oh, I see, yeah, 'cause it's summer.
and I mean, it's not even March yet. I mean, we could do it this spring.
April or May, or,
Yeah, like,
because if we make recommendations and still bring it back to the board and they need an answer before June, then we just have that
What
little
would
bit
be
of that
too late for
process.
this, Mayor?
Sorry, Mark, I was listening to Matt.
That's fine. What would be too late for this?
I mean, if you get into mid-year, I think you're a little too late. If you could do it by, say, the end of first quarter or start of second quarter, I think you're still safe. So, I mean, that's, now, flip side, if you think it's something that you're probably going to approve when that time frame comes around, you could obviously approve it now and then just deduct that number from what you're using when you do the process. But if you want to keep them all together, that's perfectly fine too, so.
with a time frame, we could have the recommendations at the April board meeting.
So we would need to have applications the 1st of April.
Or
Give us a
before
couple
we'll
weeks to
do the press
go
releases
over.
in March. So,
I'm good with that.
So is that a motion, Bonnie?
I make a motion to start the quality of life application process again, and to address those applications at the April board meeting.
A second.
You got a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Anything else? That's the end of the agenda. Would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Adjourn. Thank you. Everybody.
We'll get the press release.
Do I have to stop it as many times as I started it?
Honestly,
Thank you for